Bonjour tout le monde, good morning everyone. It is amazing to see how this forum has grown and taking on a life of its own. As Ryan was saying earlier, this year is triple the size of last year's event. That's a tribute to you, Ryan, to your dedication, your advocacy, and your leadership. And for that, I want to say thank you. But it's also about the urgency of the issues at stake. Il y a longtemps que je m'intéresse de près à la finance durable. Mais par le passé, le sujet était plutôt la chasse gardée de spécialistes du climat et des idéalistes de la finance. Aujourd'hui, la finance durable se retrouve au centre de la conversation, à juste titre. Le Canada ne pourra atteindre ses ambitieux objectifs climatiques que si le secteur financier, nos banques, nos caisses de retraite, nos assureurs, se rangent derrière les engagements de notre pays à l'égard de la carboneutralité. Et le problème n'est certainement pas un manque d'argent. C'est plutôt le fait qu'il faut aligner le capital à la vitesse et à l'échelle nécessaires pour saisir pleinement l'occasion qui s'offre au Canada de profiter d'une croissance économique propre. L'autre option, c'est celle du statu quo, qui compromet non seulement l'atteinte de nos objectifs climatiques, mais de plus nous fera prendre du retard dans la course économique vers la carboneutralité. While many financial institutions across Canada have set net zero targets for 2050, it is essential that these targets be credible. My friend Catherine McKenna, who's here with us today, has done remarkable work on this issue of ensuring credible net zero commitments from the private sector. We know the government provides a key role in enabling credible, transparent targets necessary to provide investor certainty. I'm inspired by models of leadership we are seeing all over the world. The United Kingdom, for example, has already launched a transition plan task force to provide guidance on what is a credible business climate transition plan. Gavin Newsom and my good friends in the Government of California have put together world-leading legislation requires strong climate disclosure of all emissions and climate risks. The legislation has been welcomed by California's biggest pension funds. Secretary Yellen has described climate change as the top-of-the-list financial challenges, and the United States Treasury has released guidance for transition plans. The International Financial Stability Board just reported last month that it sees encouraging progress on development of global assurance, ethics, and independence framework for sustainability disclosure. And as BlackRock CEO Larry Fink told his shareholder last year, and I quote, "We're interested in sustainability not because we're environmentalists, but because we're capitalists and fiduciaries to our clients." Here in Canada, the Office of the Superintendent of Financial Institutions has issued its first prudential framework that is climate sensitive and recognizes the impact of climate change on managing risk in Canada's financial system. But Canada's playing catch-up. The huge interest in this forum today show that there is great appetite for more clarity and direction. As a government, we want to create consistency for Canadian investors and businesses. With my colleague Christia, who's here with us today as well, we have received thoughtful advice and analysis from Canada's financial institution on how the government can provide an enabling role for clean economic growth and help them and us remain competitive in this new green economy that will be the driver of jobs and growth in the 21st century. En tant que ministre de l'Environnement et du Changement climatique du Canada, je tiens à ce qu'on respecte nos engagements climatiques et préserver la santé de notre environnement, ce qui mène à une économie plus stable et plus durable. Le gouvernement du Canada s'est probablement doté du plan de réduction des émissions pour 2030 les plus détaillés au monde, assorti d'objectifs de réduction des émissions pour tous les secteurs de l'économie. Pour réduire les émissions du secteur qui produit le plus, nous allons bientôt annoncer un cadre pour plafonner les émissions du secteur pétrolier et gazier. Nous allons continuer d'investir dans les technologies qui assurera des emplois pour les années à venir. Lorsque nous avons publié le plan de réduction des émissions l'an dernier, nous avons été surpris par les éloges que nous avons reçus d'un large éventail de groupes, aussi bien de l'industrie que du secteur de la finance, le secteur municipal, que des groupes de protection de l'environnement. La raison pour laquelle l'industrie, en particulier, a accueilli favorablement ce plan, c'est qu'il lui a donné des précisions sur les ambitions du gouvernement en matière de décarbonisation et a contribué à soutenir les objectifs de réduction des émissions de ses propres entreprises et de réaliser les engagements en matière de normes environnementales, sociales et de gouvernance. Mais en tirant des leçons des progrès réalisés par d'autres pays, le gouvernement fédéral peut faire encore plus pour contribuer à l'atteinte de nos objectifs pour 2030 et 2050 en misant sur une politique de finances durable. Nearly all of Canada's large banks and pensions have committed to reducing their emissions and reaching net zero by 2050 or sooner. But a climate commitment matters only if you have a plan to achieve it. Interim, short-term targets are also very important. So I would like to challenge our banks and pension funds with 2050 commitments to show their homework, including short-term targets for 2030, and put concrete plans in place to meet these goals. Because what our financial institutions invest in today's infrastructure, businesses, and industry shapes the economy of tomorrow and the resilience of our climate. Sustainable finance, you might say, can play hard at both ends of the rink. It can play both offense and defense. Companies need to better understand and manage the risks posed by growing impacts of climate change. We need to move toward mandatory disclosure of climate risks by companies. At the same time, capital must support the accelerated reduction of emissions, the driver of growing climate impacts. Think about Canadian pension plans. They are some of the largest asset owners globally and have international impacts. How they invest our retirement savings matter not just for Canada, but affects whether or not we get to keep a safe planet globally. Canadian pension funds are some of the world's leading investors in clean tech and clean growth. But Canadian investors, both banks and pensions, also continue to direct significant capital to fossil fuels. This creates a very risk of what's known as stranded assets as our investor move to slowly follow global direction of the energy transition. As Ryan was saying, more than $100 billion of investment are at risk of becoming stranded. Reducing emissions and investing in line with clean energy transition is the best way to reduce these risks. As I said, offense and defense. Climate action from the financial sector can play both. And it is the Government of Canada's job to help the financial sector up its game. We need to move forward on policy to align Canada's financial flows with our climate goals, including through guidance for credible and mandatory climate-related financial disclosures, and the next step of a taxonomy to define sustainable investments. And on this point, I'd like to take a moment to thank the work of the Sustainable Finance Action Council for all their hard work that went into recommendations on disclosure and taxonomy. Moving these policies forward is hard work. It doesn't always garner the attention it deserves. Financial disclosure and taxonomy aren't measures that result in ribbon-cutting ceremonies that attract front-page news. But as I said earlier, they are mission-critical for setting up the enabling framework to reach our climate and economic goals in Canada. Alors, je vous demande à toutes et à tous de continuer de souligner l'importance de la finance durable et de déployer les efforts cruciaux qui permettront à une telle politique de prendre son essor au Canada. Forums like this one will provide more ideas and momentum for action. The federal government continues its work to ensure all sectors of the economy, including finance, are contributing to the health of our environment and the health of our economy. Sustainable finance sits at the intersection of both, and let's make sure we continue to move forward on this important agenda together. Thank you. Merci. Miigwech.